Tonight, somewhere in the world, two people are about to kiss for the first time. Their pulse is climbing. Their palms are damp. Their eyes keep dropping to the other person's mouth, and neither of them will admit it. It feels like the most human moment two people can share. It isn't. The real answer is far stranger, and it starts millions of years before either of them was born. The instinct behind that moment is at least 21 million years old. It existed before your species had a name. It existed before there were any humans at all to feel nervous or fall in love or lean in first. You didn't invent the kiss. You inherited it. For decades, almost nobody studied where it actually came from. Kissing seemed too obvious to investigate, too universal, too human to need an explanation. Then, in late 2025, a team led by evolutionary biologist Matilda Brindle at the University of Oxford decided to test that assumption properly. Brindle and her colleagues built something close to a family tree of kissing. They gathered every recorded case of primates pressing their mouths together with no aggression and no food-changing hands, just lips meeting on purpose, and mapped it onto the branching family tree that connects you to every other great ape. Then they used a statistical method that essentially runs the story of evolution backward. It's called Bayesian modeling, a complicated name for a simple idea. Feed a computer thousands of known outcomes and let it calculate the most likely path that led there. Simply, think of it like reconstructing a family's history from nothing but a photograph of all the living descendants, then working backward to guess what the ancestors must have looked like. No guesswork after that part, just calculation. They ran millions of simulated versions of primate history, all pointing toward the same starting point. The answer surprised even the researchers. Kissing didn't begin with you. It began in a single shared ancestor of humans, chimpanzees, bonobos, and orangutans, somewhere between 21.5 and 17 million years ago. That ancestor passed the behavior down through nearly the entire great ape family. Amused chimpanzees kissed to make peace after a fight, pressing their mouths together the way you might shake hands after an argument. Bonobos kissed to bond, sometimes with tongue, regardless of gender or relationship. Orangutan mothers kissed their infants. Only the eastern gorilla appears to have dropped the habit somewhere along the way. Gibbons, more distant relatives on the primate tree, never seem to have had it at all. Strangely, a few monkey species outside the great ape family, some macaques among them, appear to kiss too. The models suggest they didn't inherit it from that same ancient ancestor. They seem to have stumbled onto the same behavior independently on a completely separate branch of the primate tree, which is its own small clue that mouth-to-mouth contact is almost too useful for evolution to resist reinventing. On top of that, nearly every species on the original list also shares something else. A mating system where females mate with multiple males, which makes some researchers wonder if kissing first evolved as a way to size up a partner before deciding whether they were worth the risk. So why would something this strange survive 21 million years of evolution? A kiss doesn't feed you, it doesn't shelter you, it puts your face directly against someone else's mouth, which is one of the fastest ways to catch whatever they're carrying. Researchers actually call this an evolutionary puzzle, because the risk is obvious and the payoff isn't. But Brindle's team noticed a pattern hiding underneath it. Every primate species that kisses also does something else. Mothers chew food and pass it, mouth to infants too young to chew for themselves. Scientists call this pre-mastication, a clinical word for a simple, ancient act of feeding your child from your own mouth. Was that the real origin of the kiss? A feeding behavior that outlived its original job and turned into something else entirely? Nobody can say for certain, but the pattern sits quietly underneath one of the most charged gestures in human life. For a long time, the written record of kissing looked much younger than the biological one. Historians pointed to 4 Vedic Sanskrit texts from India, written around 1500 BCE, as the first documented evidence that humans kissed each other. That date stood for decades, so widely repeated that some scholars assumed kissing itself had been invented in South Asia and spread outward from there. Then, in 2023, 2 researchers married to each other, Troels Pank Arbul and Sophie Lund Rasmussen, went digging through a different archive entirely. Clay tablets covered in cuneiform, one of the oldest writing systems on Earth, recovered from ancient Mesopotamia. What they found, published in the journal Science, pushed the written history of kissing back by more than 1,000 years, to roughly 2,500 BCE, older than anyone expected. The earliest tablets described gods kissing after intercourse. Later ones described kissing between married couples and even hinted that unmarried kissing carried different social rules. Arbel and Rasmussen also found separate references to kissing in ancient Egyptian and other Middle Eastern languages, which told them something important. Kissing wasn't invented once and spread across the world like a trend. It seems to have shown up independently, in cultures that never had contact with each other. That independence lines up with something else the researchers noticed. Kissing may have quietly helped spread disease too, including a strain of the virus responsible for oral herpes, riding along in every intimate exchange for thousands of years. And the story doesn't stop with written human history. It reaches into a species that hasn't existed for 40,000 years. In 2017, a paleomicrobiologist, a scientist who studies ancient microbes named Laura Weyrich, was examining something most people would never look at twice: the hardened plaque scraped from the teeth of Neanderthal skeletons, found in a Spanish cave called El Cedron. Buried inside that plaque, her team found the genetic signature of a microbe called Methanobrevibacter oralis. It still lives in human mouths today. It's linked to gum disease. And there it was, inside a Neanderthal's teeth from tens of thousands of years ago. So how did it get there? Here's the strange part. That microbe didn't evolve separately in two different species that never met. The Neanderthal strain and the modern human strain only split apart somewhere between about 112,000 and 143,000 years ago, long after Neanderthals and your ancestors had already branched apart on the family tree. Which means the microbe had to cross between species after that split already happened, through shared meals, through a parent feeding a child, or through two mouths meeting. This wasn't the only clue that your ancestors and Neanderthals got close. If your background traces to anywhere outside Africa, there's a good chance that somewhere between 1% and 2% of your own DNA is Neanderthal, a leftover of encounters that happened tens of thousands of years ago, in an Ice Age landscape neither of you would recognize today. Weyrich didn't hedge when she talked about it. Swapping microorganisms like that one takes closeness. Real, repeated physical closeness. When Brindle's team ran their own statistical models years later, using a completely different method, they landed in almost the same place. Their calculations put the odds of Neanderthals kissing at over 80%. Two separate approaches decades apart, pointing at the same picture. Somewhere in that Ice Age landscape, your species and Neanderthals were probably kissing each other. Now here's the twist that should stop you. If kissing really is 21 million years old, wired into the shared biology of every great ape, it should show up everywhere humans exist. For a long time, people assumed exactly that. Older estimates, repeated in books and articles for years, claimed romantic kissing appeared in more than 90% of human societies. It sounded obvious. It felt obvious. Then, in 2015, anthropologist William Jankowiak at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas actually went looking for proof. His team combed through ethnographic records from 168 human cultures around the world, hunting for documented evidence of the romantic kiss. Not a kiss between a parent and child. A kiss between lovers. What they found broke the assumption almost everyone was carrying around. Romantic kissing showed up in only 46% of the cultures studied. In the other 54%, there was no record of it at all. Take the Mehinaku, a horticultural society in the Amazon. When they want to show affection, they bite each other's eyebrows. They don't kiss on the mouth, and some described the idea as unpleasant. Jankowiak also found a pattern. Kissing showed up more often in societies with greater social complexity. Cities, trade, dense social networks, and far less often in small foraging communities. The kind of communities closest to how your ancestors actually lived for most of human history. So which is it? An ancient biological instinct, or a cultural habit some societies picked up and others never bothered with? It's both, tangled together in a way that's hard to fully separate. The capacity for kissing looks ancient, older than your species by millions of years. But whether a culture treats that capacity as romantic, sacred, strange, or beside the point is something groups of humans decide for themselves. generation after generation. Evolution built the hardware. Culture writes the software, and it doesn't always choose to run the program. There's a newer wrinkle to that story, one that touches you directly. Over the last century, film, television, and Western pop culture have carried the romantic kiss into places where it was never a native custom, turning what used to be an optional cultural choice into something close to a global script for how love is supposed to look. The close-up kiss at the end of a movie feels timeless. It's actually a recent export. When kissing does run, your body treats it as serious business. A single 10-second kiss can transfer around 80 million bacteria between two mouths. Your immune system is quietly present for all of it. Researchers Raphael Wlodarski and Robin Dunbar at Oxford have found evidence that kissing may help you unconsciously assess a partner, using scent and saliva to pick up on immune system compatibility signals you're not even aware you're reading. Ever notice how a first kiss can make your whole body feel like it just switched on? At the same time, your brain runs its own separate calculation, flooding your system with the same reward chemistry it uses for any deeply pleasurable experience. That's part of why a first kiss can feel so disproportionately intense compared to almost anything else two people do together. So think about that. The next time your pulse rises before a first kiss, what feels like pure emotion might also be 21 million years of quiet biological quality control running in the background, checking whether this particular person, this particular moment, is one worth trusting. Tonight, somewhere in the world, two people will lean in and kiss for the first time. To them, it will feel like the newest, most electric moment of their lives. It's the oldest one they'll ever share.